Oh boy. Where do I begin with this? Over the last 24 hours, I've been trying to figure out what to say about Sonic Superstars. I start writing something, get about a page in, then erase it. Eventually, I just lost all motivation to write anything. You know what? Rather than going down the list, I'm gonna explain my experience with this game chronologically. It might make it easier. After picking up a Switch copy of the game, I went home and got ready to stream it. I played for a couple of hours and ended off around the halfway point of the main story. In terms of 2D Sonic, my favorite entry has always been Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's a game packed to the brim with content, with some amazing levels, bosses, and music. It's just so refined and it feels perfectly paced. After that comes Sonic Mania, a game I also love, just not as much as Sonic 3. I think the expectations put on Superstars were enormous, and I knew there was no way it'd ever meet them. Being the follow-up to Sonic Mania is an incredibly tall task, and I wanted the game to be able to stand on its own, as opposed to trying to live up to a different game. And honestly, it feels like Sonic Team had the same idea. So much about Superstars feels like they're not trying to make Sonic Mania 2, but rather they're just trying to make a new 2D Sonic game that has some fun and unique ideas. And I think they did exactly that. It's good! Not Sonic Mania good, but good all the same. Every character plays fantastically. Sonic returns with his now standard drop dash, and it feels like such a key aspect of his character that I wonder how I ever even played a 2D Sonic game without it. Hell, I even prefer it to the spin dash because it's better at keeping the flow of gameplay going. Tails and Knuckles play exactly like how you'd want them to play, while Amy may as well be a brand new character entirely. She was added as a character in the Sonic Origins collection, but I never picked that up and I have no clue how she played there. My only reference for a 2D Amy comes in the Sonic Advance games, where she was heavily focused on bouncing around the level. Well, I think I ultimately prefer that interpretation just because it's so weird and different from everyone else. I still do like how she plays here. Not only is her double jump incredibly useful, but if you keep holding the button when you land on the ground, she'll start swinging away, letting you almost passively destroy enemies as you run around. The big new mechanic in Superstars are the Emerald abilities. Much like in past games, you can find giant rings in each level that take you to a special stage where you can obtain one of the 7 Chaos Emeralds. This new type of special stage I actually quite like, but I still prefer the ones from Mania. Swinging around is fun, but there's 1 or 2 special stages that are just frustrating. Once you get the Emerald, you unlock one of a few different powers. These powers range from slowing down time, to growing a vine that takes you further up the level, to summoning a bunch of little versions of your character that run across the screen and do damage to any enemies they hit. Conceptually, I really like these powers, but in practice, I barely made any use of them. The only ones I found myself using somewhat consistently were the screen attack and slowing down time, and even then, that was still very situational. Oftentimes, I just found they interrupted the flow of the level, and I would prefer to just keep going as I was, as opposed to finding ways to break said flow. Thankfully, you can beat the game with either minimal or even zero use of these powers, but I'm still disappointed with how this mechanic turned out. The levels themselves are actually really good. While a number of them do fit into the series tropes, like the usual casino level and Green Hill replacement, every level had some kind of gimmick that made them feel refreshing despite any similarities. Now, not every gimmick works. Press Factory in particular was pretty bad, but I'd say a good 80% of the gimmicks work, with a few I even ended up loving. The boss fights are also pretty damn good too. However, towards the back end of the game, the boss fights started to get harder, with the windows to do damage getting smaller, and the time in between these windows getting longer. Some of them I don't think it was that big of a deal, but others like this bird robot thing became frustrating with how easily you could mess it all up. And sadly, this was the first sign of Sonic Superstars not realizing when it needed to stop. By the time I got to the final boss of the main story, I was tired, but overall positive. I didn't like parts of the game, but nothing really put a damper on how I felt. Superstars was a good game in my book. And then I fought Eggman, and it just wouldn't stop. This fight is way too hard. Not only are attacks difficult to dodge, but it just kept going on and on and on. Eventually, I defeated this giant robot, only to watch as time reversed and I entered phase 2. This was then followed by me dying and having to start all over from the beginning. It just wouldn't stop, and everything that had gotten so bad about the boss fights culminated in this final boss. Once I did destroy him for good, I didn't feel fulfilled. I just felt tired. I still liked the game, it just ended really poorly. But oh, what's this? Trip's story. Ah yes, the new character added for this game, Trip the Sun Gazer. As you play through the main story, you'll come across these character-specific levels. These acts typically progress what little story there actually is, showing this new character named Trip working with Eggman and Fang as they try to stop you, only to eventually join Sonic and friends because Eggman treated them poorly and Sonic was like, hey, come hang out with us, you're cool. By beating the main story, you not only unlock Trip as a playable character in that campaign, but you also unlock a second one where you play as her exclusively. Trip as a character I actually really like. Her design is super cute and so is her personality. She plays like a mix between Amy and Knuckles, being able to roll up into a spiked ring with her double jump and climb up or across any surface. It's kind of like the Spike Wisp from Sonic Colors, but you can't go from the wall to the ceiling without having to jump between them. She plays pretty well, and I honestly hope she doesn't get the same treatment that Fang did, where she just disappears for 25 years. The day after beating the main campaign, I booted up Trip's story, only for the same tired feeling to creep back up again. I loved how Trip played, but I realized her story was more than just the same game, but with her. It was a hard mode, with new levels. Sonic Superstars wasn't 26 acts long, it was 52. And the back half is much harder than the front. I chugged through Trip's story. When a level didn't have a brand new layout, the game made sure to find ways to make the reused one much harder. I died and died and died, losing more and more of the enthusiasm I had for Superstars. The reason this video took a bit to be made is because I had to will myself to keep playing when I could have been playing Spider-Man 2 or Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Sonic lost out most days. Eventually, I got to the final boss of Trip's story, but rather than it being a harder version of Eggman's fight, it was a brand new one against Fang. And my god, this fight is even worse. Take everything I complained about with every fight in the game. The incredibly short attack windows, the long periods in between each window, the ridiculously large amount of hits needed to beat them, the unnecessarily difficult second phase, having to start all over every time I died, and add on the addition of one-hit kill attacks and a two-part attack that gives you 0 time to react. I played for 3 hours before eventually rage quitting and going for a walk. When I got back, I decided, screw it, I'm not beating this game. I'm just gonna make the video anyway. But after 30 minutes, I realized I had 0 motivation to do so. I wanted to forget about this game and move on. After dinner, I was questioning whether I even liked the first story, so I decided to go back through and give those levels another try. And you know what? I liked them! I really liked them! I had an utter blast plowing through everything! I decided to give Fang a few more tries, and eventually I did it. I beat Fang. I felt nothing, but I beat him. After this, you unlock the true final boss where you play as Super Sonic. That fight is long, but honestly, I didn't hate it. Of the 3 final bosses, it was easily the least offensive. I just felt so empty. Sonic Superstars is a good game. It's a good game until it's not. The problem is it doesn't know when to stop. The boss fights, the amount of stages, the absurd increase in difficulty. It feels like they made it harder just to make it harder, and it killed my desire to replay this game anytime soon. And even if I do, it will probably just be the main story. If the game was half as long as it is, I would have had a much better impression of it. But as it is, it's frustrating. I was debating whether or not to even make this a good game because I'm just so damn conflicted and I don't know what to say. I don't think it's bad. It's just too much. I hope the next 2D Sonic game learns from this and instead focuses more on creating a tighter, better experience. I think I've said everything that I can possibly say about this game. I don't know. I'm done. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Tell me what you thought of Sonic Superstars in the comments down below, and while you're there, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future uploads. We got both the Super Mario RPG remake and Persona 5 Tactica coming up, and you know I plan on covering those. Before we go, I want to try something a little new. As some of you might know, I'm a comic book nerd. I read week to week and usually pick up a pretty decent stack every Wednesday. I mainly only talk about them on Twitter because this is a video game channel, but I want to try a short extra segment at the end of my videos where I recommend an issue I thought was really good. It might get some more people into it. I don't know. It's purely for my own desire to talk about the stuff I like, and hopefully you guys end up liking it too. We'll see how this goes. For my first recommendation, it's actually 2 issues of the same book. Radiant Black issue 26. Both covers A and B. Radiant Black is a great series that feels like a more tokusatsu Super Sentai take on Invincible. The creator, Kyle Higgins, is known for launching the incredible Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic you might have heard of in recent years. And you can really tell this is by the same guy. Radiant Black is currently going through an arc called the Catalyst War. Just before this arc started, the titular Radiant Black is a mantle actually shared by 2 different characters, Nathan and Marshall. In issue 24, it was revealed that only one of them can continue being the superhero, and readers were given the ability to vote for who. The twist, however, is that we would be seeing 2 different interpretations of this arc. The A cover, which has Marshall retaining the mantle, and the B cover, which has Nathan keeping it, with the outcome of the vote being revealed at the end of the story. Meaning that with the votes locked in, we get to see their character tested and decide for ourselves whether we still feel the same about who we want to be Radiant Black. 2 parts in, we're already seeing the differences, and the story is only going to keep deviating from each other with every new entry. It's a super fun concept for a story, and I cannot recommend this series enough. Give it a look and let me know what you think on Twitter. You guys have a nice day. I'm gonna go... not this.
Run.